Delia, as we're waiting
Mhm.
for a full group of panelists to join us this morning, can you confirm that my audio sounds right?
Your audio sounds good.
Oh, great. Thank you
Yep,
so much.
we are ready.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, everyone, I see that both Mike and Carolina have unmuted themselves. And so I get a sense that we are truly ready to begin today.
There we go.
Hi,
Hello.
everybody. Welcome.
How are you?
Very good. And so I want to start by letting the audience know again that you have joined a Speak to the Experts panel on PPP loan forgiveness this morning. My name is Rebecca Gould, and I work at the UMKC Small Business Development Center as part of the Missouri SBDC, funded by the Small Business Administration. I'll be one of our moderators this morning, and I am joined from the SBDC by one of my compatriots, Delia. Would you like to tell us briefly about yourself, Delia?
Good morning. Yes, thank you, Rebecca, and welcome everyone. My name is Delia Marin, and I am also one of the consultants with the Small Business Development Center. And I wear another hat. I'm also a procurement specialist with PTEC, which is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. I'm looking forward to this great panel today and hearing some of the answers to some great questions we're going to be shooting out. So thank you, everyone, and welcome.
Excellent. So Delia and I will be acting as moderators because we have actual SBA deep experts with us this morning. And I am delighted to first introduce Mike McWhorter. Mike, I've got your name, but why don't you tell us why people should be super excited to learn from you?
Well, thank you very much. I am Michael McWhorter, Mike McWhorter. I am in the Kansas City District Office. I am the lead lending relations specialist for the district. The thing that's so exciting today, or what I bring to the table, is I have numerous years with the SBA, closing in on 15, and I've worked at both centers, the processing center and the liquidation center, and also spend a little time in disaster and with the Office of Inspector General. Therefore, I know the front and back end of SBA, which helps me to be able to relay and to, I don't want to say layman's term, but simplify some of the questions people are having, because I know what the intent of the program is behind it. So therefore, I think I bring to the table a little bit of common sense to be able to understand sometimes what maybe all the attorneys are writing about and how they're doing the SOP as our standard operating procedure. And as everybody knows, with this bill, it was called the CARES Act, and then we had the FLEX Act. And then what you have to do is get through all that and get down to what it's actually, where is the meat on the bone at, and what does it help people. I'd like to also introduce Carolina Vargas, who works with me in the Kansas City District, and let her tell you a real quick brief about her.
Well, good morning, everyone. Carolina Vargas with the SBA as well. I've been with the SBA about 3 years, but I have about 20 years of government experience. I work for the DoD, NORAD, and U.S. Northern Command. I'm here with Mike for the past 3 years, learning and teaching the banks about the SBA programs and services. So we are excited to be here, letting you know what you should be looking for in order for you to get your loan forgiven by the SBA and the IRS.
Absolutely. We are delighted to have such a deep bench of actual SBA experts with us today in this conversation, and could not be more grateful for the offer of simplification, because everybody's trying hard, and a little clarity in complex times is really appreciated. So for those participating in the audience, the origin of this conversation was that in so many of the presentations that the SBA has been able to provide so far about loan forgiveness, there's so much dense information presented that time for questions has been limited. And so our goal in this conversation is for all of you participating with us online, please put your questions into the chat so that we can work them into our conversation for the day. Because the goal is to be able to get, for lack of a better term, off script and into the nuances of what those of you participating with us at home really want to learn about. So we'll start with a couple of questions that we get as frequently asked questions here at the Missouri Small Business Development Center. And then as people start to gain comfort and participate with their questions in the chat, we'll loop those into the dialogue as well. Everybody cool with that plan?
Love it.
All right, go team. All right, so our first question comes from some of what's happening in our offices. It's a question about, well, you know, I see you guys talking about PPP loan forgiveness, but I haven't applied for a PPP loan yet. Can I still get one?
Unfortunately, the PPP loan program expired in August 8th, and Congress, we still go to some legislation may come back and open it up because we had $132 billion plus left, and that's with a B, of the money that Congress had set aside for the PPP program. Some of you may have watched in the news and seen how that when we first rolled the program out on April 3rd, after the bill was signed, the CARES Act was signed March 27th, the Treasury was the one that had the money allocated, and the SBA was used as a delivery system to deliver the loans to the small business owners. And so what we did was we worked with our partners, lenders who normally do SBA loans, and plus we went outside and got some more to be able to assist the small business owners in getting their PPP loan. That's a long way of saying that we ran out of money in a big fashion hurry on the first initial wave of it. And Congress came back and allocated another $350 billion to the program. Well, the program went all the way to August 8th, and we still have $132 billion plus left in the program, which Congress, when they hopefully make a determination on another stimulus act or bill, will be able to address what they want to do with that. But currently, no, you can't do a PPP loan right now.
Gotcha. So if we miss the window, your options are to reach out to your senators and Congress people and watch the news for stimulus to come. Additionally, those of us at the Small Business Development Center, you can reach out directly to us and we can talk to you about other disaster financing options that are available out in our local marketplace. And other funding options. But yeah, unfortunately, August 8th was the PPP limit for now. Stay tuned and call your Congress people if you have a different thought.
All right.
And I would add on that too, Rebecca, too, as you well aware of, and your folks there at the SBDC, there's also other SBA programs to help small business owner. Our 7A and 504 programs are still available. We're still open for business and still doing loans. But also we have the disaster EIDL, which is still going, that if somebody has not applied yet, they can apply for the disaster EIDL. Now, the grants that got such a big play in the news, they've expired with the PPP program, and there's no more grants, but you can still apply for a 30-year loan at 3.75 for profit businesses, and for nonprofit, if we have any of those out there listening, I believe it's 2.75, Carolina, I believe is the interest rate on the
That
EIDL.
is correct, yes.
So the EIDL program is still available, and I would recommend that people go to the SBA website, sba.gov/disaster, and you can actually fill out the application online and see if you qualify for any disaster funds. Now, these are the same disaster loans we do for, as we all heard in the news this weekend, another hurricane's coming into the Gulf and going to be hitting Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. SBA's been around for years doing disaster loans, and that's where the EIDL comes from, because it's an economic injury disaster loan is what the EIDL stands for. And those are still available for people affected by the coronavirus, and also will be available for our friends and neighbors down on the Gulf Coast for the next hurricane that's supposed to, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday. So
I know
that is still available.
It's
Right.
crazy. So
Mhm.
what we have going on is a wonderful opportunity to talk more in depth tomorrow at noon about the EIDL program.
Mhm.
We have a whole hour to talk deeply about that. Join us then. There's some information in the chat. And now I'm going to turn the next question over to Delia.
Yes, so wonderful. Well, I've got a question here. Under the category of lease payments besides rent and such, can you also pay lease payments for your software programs if you lease on a usage basis each month? That's a question coming from one of our participants. Can you
Yeah.
answer that, Mike?
Okay, so they've got a lease payment on the use of.
Rent and such, can you also pay lease payments for your software programs if you lease on a usage basis each month?
Yeah, that was confusing there a minute.
Mhm.
Yes, because it applies just like if you were leasing a bulldozer from Caterpillar, that lease would be covered too in there. So leasing software would be also an expense you could do in that. Yes, that would be eligible. And to document that, you could either have a copy of your lease agreement from the software provider or cancel checks and associated with that so that you could show the proof that that's being paid there.
Great, great. Well, I'm going to take a step back. What if you did apply for the PPP? Will your bank give you the options that you have for forgiveness?
Okay. Yes, the banks are very critical in this whole procedure because they're the ones who lent the money originally, because nobody at the SBA or the Treasury gave them the money and said, here, Rebecca, here's $5 million, go out there and loaned it out. The banks loan their own money. So they're interested in getting you forgiven for the whole amount so they can get their money back in their bank. So they're a big key player in this. They should spell out for you and help you, but I would refer people back to the SBDCs if they're having issues or questions about filling out the application as to what is eligible and what isn't, because I know y'all have been doing some extensive training on it, and it's a way to do it. And I'd like to take the opportunity too at this time and tell people, don't go out there and pay somebody $500, $1,000 to fill out your application. That's a waste of money and time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people, I see this in my career. I worked Katrina, Rita, and Wilma, which is the last time that NOAA ran out of names for hurricanes. So I worked that disaster, and there was people running around all over town going, "I'll fill out your application for $500," and people were buying, paying it. So don't do that. You have too many resources here in the Kansas area, and it's the Kansas City area, and just reach out to the SBDC, because I always tell people in all my other seminars, it's always best to have a second pair of eyes looking at numbers and make sure you got everything correct. So that's,
Heck yeah.
I hope, yeah.
That's what we're here for. Us
Exactly.
and many other SBA supporter programs all exist to help with this very thing.
Mhm.
And so, yes, you can get us at sbdc.umkc.edu if you're unfamiliar with how to get us outside of however you found this webinar. But so along the line of, okay, I want to fill out this stuff, I want to get this forgiven. Before we reach out, what's the basic information that we should probably try to get our hands on about what's been happening to us? Like, I imagine loan number, amount, employee stuff. Like, what's the basics that we should be trying to get our hands on as we start this process?
Okay. What I recommend is first thing to do is to download the instructions for our forms. The application forms, there's two. There's the 3508 and there's the 3508 easy form. Remember, we're in this with Treasury, which is IRS. That's why these numbers come up like they do. I'm sorry, we can't have, long form, short form, easy form, something like that. But so we got the 3508, which is considered a long form because it has a Schedule A and it has 2 or 3 more pages than the easy form. The easy form is basically a 1-page with numbers and information, and the second page is just initials. We'll get more into that in detail later. But if I'm starting out the process, I want to first of all know what my loan numbers were for my PPP loan, how much did I get, how long did it take me to spend it, and what did I spend it on. So either a spreadsheet or maybe just, sitting down at the dining room table with a tablet and going, okay, I spent X dollars here, here, here. Then I want to look at that instruction and say, okay, what part of my expenses are eligible to be associated with my PPP loan and what are not. And remember too, don't be afraid of the fact, a lot of people get tied up in the fact that the rule is you have to spend 60% of your PPP on wages. If you spend 100% on your wages, that's great, because that's what the intent of the program was to start with, was to pay your wages. And then through the bill and through everything else, we've incorporated a bunch of expenses and stuff that we say, yeah, because that's allowed, because that's going to help you and your employees be able to perform their job. But I would first break down, where did I spend my money? What did I spend it on? Because once you got that money, it got commingled into your checking account more than likely. And as you got sales coming in and revenues and all that, you're going to have your money sort of commingle or mixed together. And from that, you need to keep a list of what you spent money on. So first order of business is how much do you pay in salary and wages. Next would be how much did you as a small business owner contribute to the employees. And you just keep breaking it down, Rebecca. You just keep going down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And again, look at the instructions. Go to events like this, reach out to people and see what expenses are acceptable, because we will get into that a little bit later. I know Carolina's had several questions about primary residence, being an expense, but we'll get into the expenses in detail. But I would just first look at all my numbers, break them down, see what I'm working with.
Excellent. And I see Carolina has just put the link to the instructions that you were talking about into the chat, as well as a link to the easy application. And so, so I guess the next question is, how do I know if I get easy? So Carolina, you're the one with the instructions and the link. So maybe you can tell us how do I know which one is me? How do I get easy? Tell me how I get something with that label on it, because that sounds more intriguing to me.
Yes, that's fine. So there's 3 questions that they will that will require to be answered in order for you to to determine if the 3508 EZ is the correct application for your business. 90% of the time, anything below, if you don't have a corporation or somebody that's doing your business, your accounting, you will be using the 35EZ form. I would say probably anything below 200,000. I mean, you could be at $2 million as well, but again, it all depends on checking the answers on the 35EZ instructions.
Gotcha. And I think Adelia has questions that she wants to read from the chat, but she's on mute. And so she's going to unmute herself and then tell us a little bit more about what she's bringing from the chat. In theory.
In theory, it works most of the time.
Yeah. Hey, but we're all learning, technology can be our friend at times.
Uh-huh. I'd like to bring up one, Rebecca, that's okay. It seems to be we get a lot of calls on this.
Please.
A lot of calls come in about a sole prop, people who own, and I will say that our percentages are probably going to be 90% of all the PPP loans issued can use the easy form to fill out to get the forgiveness application. But we get a lot of calls from people who are just independent, sole props, farmers, ranchers, just basically I'm running a business myself. I don't have any employees. And a lot of the confusion comes in on that is we get a call about what do I need to document and how do I, justify or certify this money being used. Those applications, most of them were filled out and they used the Schedule C of their tax return, which on a 1040, you have a Schedule C for your business that you file when you're a small business owner. On that, we use the line 34 or 31 and line 34 of the Schedule F for farmers and ranchers, which is their net income. Net income is what you make. That's your basically your wages, and it was capped at 100,000. It's easy to document. The money goes into your business account if you have one, and you write yourself a check out to your personal account. You do not have to account for the money you put into your personal checking account the same way you don't have to account if you have employees where they spent their money. You're allowed to spend your money however you want to. If you have rent, house payments, if you want to put money and give Salvation Army, it doesn't matter. Because once the money's in your account, you can do with it what you want. You don't have to sit and get into the weeds and go, well, I paid myself $6,000 this month, example. But I didn't spend but $3,500. What I do, how do I just, no, you paid yourself. You can do what you want to. You can put it in a savings account. We don't care what you do with the money once you have it. Just like we don't care about the employees, what they do with their money. And that seems to be a real big question we get a lot is how to document it. And the easy way is your checking account from your business, show a canceled check that you deposited in your account, your personal account. That's all the documentation required for a sole prop.
Okay.
If you have rent or
so
something,
many of us, oh, pardon me. I apologize, Mike. I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, you're fine.
Apologies. So many of us are going to get to use the easy form. And there's a handful of us that are going to have the, for lack of a better term, the long form. If that's us, we have a session coming up very similar to this on Thursday of this week at 3 o'clock to get more into that process for the long form. I believe that the link for that, for those of us who aren't in the easy form, who are going to have some different processes, you can join us this Thursday at 3 to talk more in depth about those circumstances that, Mike, thank you for just describing that some of us may find ourselves in. So Schedule C is a big deal, Schedule F if you're a farmer, and if you're like, oh, I don't think any of this is me, there's more conversation to come on this Thursday at 3. In the meantime, we've got a question from Reginald in the chat that I'd like to open up to you both. Reginald is an LLC. He has a roofing company and he only uses subcontractors. He was surprised to receive a PPP loan and incredibly thankful. It says his loan was based on all subcontractors and 100% of the loan went to pay his subs. Will they still be considered employees, is his question.
That's one we need to really look at, Reginald, like an email to Rebecca or something so we can look at, because that's getting a little into the finite of the details. Typically, the program should not have allowed you to apply for contractors or people that you do 1099s with. Now, if by some reason you pay them on a W-2, then they count. And that's what I'm talking about. It gets into a little bit of the, well, what was we actually looking at? But theoretically speaking, if you got the PPP loan, everything's correct, then yes, your money that you spent on your employees would be deducted or would be considered part of the forgiveness part. So that's one probably want to talk a little offline, not here in public forum with you about. So probably an email to Rebecca. Carolina can put an email address in there too, to probably discuss it a little more. But theoretically speaking, the PPP program was set up to pay your wages for your employees or again yourself. And when you're paying wages to employees, again, if you do 80% of your PPP loan goes to that aspect of your business, that's fine, because during this COVID period, I know that a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of small business owners might have had 4 employees to work. They did carpet cleaning. I'm just trying to come up with something off my head. They did carpet cleaning, and during this period, they converted over and doing, sanitizing residents and offices, and they got more business than they know what to do with. So their payroll actually went up. Okay, it went up because they're having to pay overtime, all kinds of stuff going on. That up can also be considered in your PPP as long as you don't exceed $100,000 per employee. That was the cap. So some people are going to be able to spend their whole PPP loan on strictly nothing but wages, which is great. That's not a problem.
Excellent. So let's see. One of the questions, so we had talked earlier, you're like, will my bank notify me? Yes, was the answer to that, because they are very interested in getting capital put back into their bank. You can be proactive and help and start gathering information. We talked a little bit about some of the information, what you received, what you spent it on. It can just start with back of the napkin. There is information in the chat about how to contact the SBDC, your guys' direct email addresses for questions. We know that most people are going to be able to use the easy form. Then the form link as well as instructions are in the chat there. So then I guess I'll ask this question next before we go to another question in the chat. What are the common mistakes that you guys are seeing people make with the easy form?
The most common mistake that I'm personally seeing is people putting in their idle grant money as their idle loan money. There's two, and we'll talk about that, like you said, tomorrow in detail about the idle, but on the application, you have to put what your grant or advance. We use the word EIDL or idle or however you want to say it, but we call it idle. Advance is the grant that the SBA gave everybody who filled out the application. And a lot of people filled out the application, got the grant, got declined other reasons. That's not it. But the grant was based on $1,000 per employee. So if I had, like I was just talking about, if I had 4 employees and myself, it'd be $5,000. I would have gotten grant or advance from the idle if I filled out both. You have to fill out both applications. That money they're putting in on the application, they're putting in, oh, I received $6,427 on my idle loan. You know, and they put that number in, and that number is always going to be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. It's never going to be an odd number in there, because if that's a number, then that is your actual idle loan, and we don't care on the PPP side what you get on the idle loan side. And I think that's the most common mistake or causes heartburn the most, is figuring those two out when you're putting it on the application. It's like the very top quarter or half, would you say, Carolina, of the application page?
Yeah, I would say so.
And then getting the numbers, you know, just.
Gotcha. So the question itself is, what was your idle advance? That's the question. And what's happening is people are putting in their total loan amount.
Yeah.
Is that correct? The actual idle loan amounts. So there's a difference between the grant and the idle loan, which again, we will talk about again more tomorrow. The idle loan is strictly with the SBA, not with the lender. So that some people do get confused about that.
Absolutely. No, that's really, because it is, you're like, well, I got this money, blah, blah, blah. What they're just asking you on the easy form is, what is that little squirt of money you got up front? That's the question. That's what belongs on the easy form question.
Yeah. And then people want to take that grant and subtract it from their numbers. And we're not saying that. We just want you to put the number in the application.
Yeah.
Then at the bottom of the application,
tell you what it is, right? Just tell you what it is. Let you guys do the math.
We do the math. We double check. We make sure. But that's the most common mistake what it causes heartburn is because you turn the application into the lender. The lender gets the application. They know that that's supposed to be even $1,000 marks, and they send it back to you and go, try again, because this is not your idle advance. This has to be a loan. And so anytime we can stop the back and forth, then that helps people out. And I know you was talking about the banks would let you know, a lot of local bankers, and I mean a bunch of local bankers, are not accepting applications on loans, on PP loans under 150 yet. That's okay. We can't go in there and take a baseball bat and go around and beat them like, you know, playing the little game that the little guide popped up
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole, thank you. I was struggling there for a minute. I hadn't had all my coffee, and I was sitting there drinking it this morning when we first started. I'm like, I got to quit. So we can't go in there and make them do it, but what they're doing is they're waiting for some more guidance on the below 150, because there is talk all over the media, all over social media. People are texting or tweeting stuff and Facebook that the government's going to just do a blanket forgiveness for loans under 150. I, as an SBA representative, no, that is not true, because it has to be enacted by Congress. And as we see, Congress has to get together and vote on something. So there is no program like that, but a lot of lenders are waiting to see, because nobody is in danger of having to make a payment. And that's another thing I think Carolina gets a lot of calls on, is you don't have a payment due right now. There's nobody got an idle loan on April 3rd, going to have a payment due in October, because the Flex Act give everybody 10 months.
Okay. And so
that's the difference between the 8 weeks and the 24 weeks. That's some people that I get calls from is like, when do I submit my application? If the answer will be, once you deplete your funds between the 8 and the 24 weeks. So let's say that you applied in April. It was originally under the 8 weeks, because but because of the extended after the June 5th, we went to 24 weeks, meaning we don't have a payment until the SBA approves the forgiveness application.
Okay, so this is making me feel a lot better, guys. So a couple of things I've learned in the last few minutes is that I'm going to do my dead level best to fill this form out right, but my bank has a vested interest in looking at this and telling me if it's actually right, and that you guys also are going to help me with this once it gets from the bank to y'all, and so that I have to give it my best educated effort, and there's people to help me with this, and plus I have more time to do all this than I thought I did. And so, whoo, woosah. All right, now that I've taken my own self down the ledge a little bit, I want to go back into the chat and take a look at a question from Deborah. Deborah asks, if we have H-2B employees that we did not include in our numbers, can we still use the short form to file for forgiveness?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Caroline. I'm fine.
Okay, as long as they didn't reduce their hourly wages by more than 25%, then yes, you can definitely use the easy form. If you had 5 employees and you reduce them, but in the use of the time of the money, you hire 2 employees, and at the end you had 10 employees. So then yes, you can use the easy form.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's helpful information to be like, okay, so the employees that I used to get my PPP loan, then the world changed on me. And so then I'm like, okay, wait, these are the employees that I have once I had the money. And then that's what this is all based on. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and a really critical point here is when you filled out the application, you did not list your employees' names nor their social security numbers. You only said I had X number of employees, okay? And that was February 15th, 2020 is what we're basing a lot of numbers on.
Okay.
Excuse me. So now, and I'll just use this as a scenario. Caroline and I have a little company, and we started off and we applied for the application. We had 5 employees. Well, you know, Johnson County, boy, shut us down. We was waiting on the PPP loan. We'd let the people go. The people left. They went and found work over at Rebecca's place. They won't come back. I applied for 5, but now, you know, open up and what do I do? You know, hair's on fire. Well, thank goodness I put an ad in the paper and there's a bunch of people showed up. And now I've got, like Caroline said, I got 10 people working because I got more work than I can say grace over. So now I have 10 employees, but I finished spending all my PPP. Now what? You know, I don't have the original 5, but I got 10 or 5, you know, however you want to. Nobody asks you for names, social security of your employees. And if somebody left, I've had several here in Shawnee that had people who, for some reason, got married during this pandemic. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, we'll go on with that.
It's a different webinar.
Different webinar you want to go to. But they got married and they moved to Baltimore. Excuse me. And they moved to Baltimore. And so they left their business. The employee left. I mean, they didn't quit. They just moved out of town. That's fine. If they hire a new person to take that person's place, no harm, no foul. So, and the reduction is if I started with 5 and I lost 2, and 25% is our mark. So if I lost 2 and never hire anybody back, then I've got to look at adjusting my PPP forgiveness amount. But if I started with 5 and lose 1, I'm still good to go. So okay. 25% is the big key. Either hourly or employee number is what's going to be determining.
Okay. So, okay, that's really helpful. So, because in my head as the owner, I know that I meant, I don't know, Ricky, Bobby, Sally, Joe, and Sue, but y'all don't know. It could be, you know, 10 other yahoos, pardon me, valued employees. And y'all don't care. It's just like, who were the people? What did we pay them? And just like, how many bodies did you have? What did you pay them? Not Ricky, Bobby, Sue, and whoever else I said.
Right. And then when you do the application, Rebecca, you don't put the names or the social security numbers on them.
The other people. Okay. Whoo! I'm feeling a lot better about this. Okay. I'd actually like to go back real quick to some really easily accessible verbiage that Carolina used earlier and see if it lines up with some really technical verbiage that I read in the instructions for some of this. So when I'm reading the instructions, I see a lot about the covered period and about the alternative payroll covered period. What? Is what? I don't know what that is. Is this related to this 8 and 24 week thing you were just telling me, Carolina?
Yes, that is correct. So the cover period, it is the, so at the beginning, Congress did the 8-week period. So meaning, and there was supposed to be a payment due in October for some people that are, asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
But when they passed the June 5th flex law, they extended that period to 24 weeks.
Okay. So
within that 24 weeks, the borrowers have that time to deplete their funds, because some people, like Mike was saying, they didn't use all their money or didn't get all their people back, and they needed more time in order to complete that period. But if you completed that period within 12, 13 weeks, you don't have to wait the full 24 weeks to apply for forgiveness.
Okay. So CARES Act gave me 8 weeks to use the money for the stated things. And then because wackiness ensued for many of us, Flex Act says, it's okay, you can take 24 weeks. Is that effectively what we're talking about here?
Correct.
Oh, that is so much simpler than what it feels like when I read the instructions. I'm so glad you guys are here explaining this to me. So I've just got longer to spend the money down, and no one is forcing me to apply for anything at any time. You just, when you get to the end of 24, just apply for your forgiveness and go team. You don't have to do it early. Just everybody chill out. Is that about where we're at?
And I would suggest, Rebecca, remember, this is all coming from the Treasury. This is not an SBA loan program. Never in our 1953 we've been around, and never have I seen a program like this. This is not an SBA program. This is a Treasury-driven program that we just we took off in a plane. The Treasury had the money in the back, and as we're taking off, somebody goes, we need to put some engines out here. We need to put a wing out here. Need a windshield for the pilot. We were building this program in like 4 or 5 days, and we put a $350 billion program out the door. Not anywhere close to a 7A program or 5.0, our standard, our flagship
5.4,
programs. We did this all on the cuff. We took Treasury. And so when you're talking about some of these information out there, that's what I was talking about in the very beginning when we was introducing ourselves. This is IRS driven. And I know most all of us have been doing taxes for years. And thank God for little, programs like tax, whatever. I can't say no name for anybody, but I got a little program on my computer, and I go in and put it in, and it tells me what I need the additional information.
Yeah.
You can't read the IRS. And so they're involved. They make stuff a little more difficult than what it needs to be. But at the end of the day, we're still going to boil it down to common sense for you. But yeah, the IRS is, they're wordy.
God bless. Well, and everybody, I always describe it to people as us in the government, having been the equivalent of a snake trying to swallow a grapefruit, right? It doesn't mean it can't be done. It means there was a lot of volume that had to happen really fast. And the information that this is a Treasury program that's being administered by the SBA can really help with kind of understanding, well, I'm calling the SBA, how come? Thing. You're like, whoa, slow your roll. In the nicest possible way, we'll figure it out together.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, go ahead.
No, that's basically it in a nutshell. Is we're like the person on second base. We're sort of out here going, hey, but the IRS and the Treasury Department do not have loan programs. Obviously, they don't loan money. And because this started out as a loan program to maybe be forgiven on the back end, they needed a loan program. They looked around all the agencies. The Department of Justice, no, they don't have a loan program. Department of Defense, no, they like spending money. So they came to us and they said, we want to use your program. We went, we don't have a program like this. I mean, And that was really hard at the beginning too for a lot of our lenders who have been doing SBA loans. They tried to put this loan in an SBA loan box. It doesn't. So, but yeah, it's a work in progress. We're still flying. Now we're trying to put landing gear on so we can land the plane. So we're still working.
I love that analogy. That's a really good. Now we're in landing gear phase. And
Yes.
once the landing gear is built, then we will land the plane. Just
Yes.
order of operations. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I've got another question in the chat, Mike. One of our participants did not get an idle it says we did not get an idle amount, only PPP bulk loan. Is this common?
Only PP. Yeah, a lot of people now, and I don't want to get deep in the numbers, but for our general discussion, PPP loans average a little north of 5.5 million, let's say. The EIDL program did about 10.5 million. And there's a lot of people that got EIDL loans that never applied for PPP. And yes, there's a bunch of people who applied for PPP that never applied for EIDL. The reason is their business may have been impacted, like, you know, when we started out, everything closed. And okay, well, you can go do this, you can go do that. And some of those businesses have never been affected again. So they may not feel they need an EIDL. And so they just got the PPP loan. In that case, that's all you're dealing with. And that's going to be an easy rock.
Okay, well, that's good. So then you're like, well, in that question, what was your EIDL advance amount? You just put 0.
0.
Right? Okay.
Actually, don't even put anything. Just leave it blank.
Just leave it blank. Now,
Yes.
Isn't the question somebody's going to ask you, why didn't you fill out this thing?
Yeah, they could, but yeah.
Or like a 0 or an NA or just be aware that when you get the follow-up question that you did not get an EIDL advance.
A little frowny face. You didn't receive one. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I can say pretty confidently that Mike is not actually recommending you put a frowny face on your form. Although I would personally take a picture of it and find it amusing, but we should probably.
Yeah. I know a few lenders that would probably have a good chuckle and laugh about that. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not without sense of humor. I've got a couple of questions in the Q&A portion of what we have going on here.
Mm-hmm.
It says, question from Kathy. My lending bank has said they do not have final information for applying for forgiveness, and they want us to wait at this point. They've heard that loans under 150 and maybe 350 may be forgiven automatically. Is this true that I should wait?
Yes, because the lender is driving the program for us, and it was their money. And so if they want to wait, in which, again, Rebecca, I want to stress very highly, we have a 24-week period, which most people look at that as 6 months. You got 10 months to apply for forgiveness. That's 16 months.
Okay.
If you start talking April 2024, 10, we're way out there into August or something like that of next year before we have to worry about anything. So the lenders are doing that, and they think that's in the best interest of the small business owner. So they're telling them to wait a little bit. Like you said a while ago, God, we got a little time we can relax and breathe.
Okay.
I realize there's some people who want to get that off their book and, you know, not being, but when we forgive the loan, we're going to forgive the loan and the interest accrued on the loan. So you will actually end up paying nothing if you get full forgiveness. We're not going to forgive it and go, oh, by the way, you owe us $13.22 in interest. So we're going to cover the whole period of what we forgive. It's going to be including interest and stuff. But the banker is thinking, okay, they're going to come out and say they're going to do a blanket forgiveness and we're going to be good. Hold off, wait another month or so and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and we have time.
Okay, because as borrowers, we have plenty of time. Mm-hmm. And so what's nice is that all the people who are participating with us today are conscientious and proactive. We know that just by being here in this conversation at this point of the timing, which is really great. But because conscientious folks are that way, they want to know what the rules are and that kind of thing. So, so it's okay to wait, especially because banks, you know, if it's going to get blanket forgiven, which is a huge question mark. If you take nothing from this, that is a huge unknown at this point, and it relates to Congress all getting together and agreeing on something.
Yeah, and also the gold nugget for the participants today is, guys, when this program started, when the president signed the CARES Act in March 27th. I was inundated March 28th with people telling me how the program was laid out. There is a lot of misinformation out there throughout media, social media, organizations, stuff like that. I'm gonna direct you to the people who can help you, the SBDCs and your local SBDC, because they're all over the state of, there may be people listening to us from Hawaii, but you can go to any state SBDC and get help. The lender is not going to jeopardize you or their money. And so if they're saying, wait a little bit, just take a deep breath and relax and wait a little bit with them. And people who are proactive, even if you turn your application into the lender and they take it, the lender has 60 days. I think this was a topic we haven't covered. The lender has 60 days in order to take your application and then forward it to the SBA with a recommendation for either approval, partial approval, or denial. That's the only three they're going to be. So they get your application, they go, yep, we think this is a full approval, just forgive the whole thing. They have 60-day window from the day they receive it to send it. Once they send it, the SBA has 90 days. That's a total of 150 days, okay? That's almost a half a year. We have 90 days to make to concur with their recommendation for full approval. People are like, why does it take so long? You know, I've only got a $12,000 loan. Again, we're dealing with 5.5 million of your friends, and we only have so many people who are qualified or can work on this program. And we never had this program before, so we had to take people and educate them in how to look at the forgiveness application, because again, the airplane took off, we put it together.
It's new, and plus it's from the Treasury. So lots to learn. So, and what I'd like to do at this point, because some of what you guys just brought up spurred some questions for me, but what I'd like to do based on time is do another call out for specific questions from our audience. You can put them into the chat, you can put them into the Q&A, and we will address those questions with our remaining time. And while we're waiting for those questions to come in, Carolina and Mike, I have a few more questions based on something you just shared. Oh yeah, Mike, please.
Carolina, you were going to talk to him about the Spanish version or whatever?
Yes, there is for those that do, they need assistance in Spanish. We have also the instructions and the application in Spanish. And I'm not sure, Rebecca, if you guys have a Spanish-speaking person, but they can always call me. I definitely assist with the translation.
¿Habla español?
No. Yeah, that was painful. Even to get no out was painful. Luckily, Delia, who is experiencing technical difficulties and had to leave us, and I think beat her computer against a desk. Thankfully, while she doesn't have technical ability today, she has deep language skills, and so we are able to assist participants in both English and Spanish at the Missouri SBDC.
I'd also say that if speaking to Deutsch, we have that, and parlez-vous français, we can do that.
Yes.
So we have a little variety of stuff in there. But,
excellent.
Yeah, under the SBA website, they have it in different languages. So
yes.
Okay, that's excellent.
Don't feel like if you're out there and let's say some of your participants, as we all know, Rebecca, and working with small business owners for years, most small business owners sort of run around in a little group. And if you know somebody that has maybe a little trouble understanding English, or it's their third or fourth language,
props to them. I only know one.
Yes, and we do have the ability to put it into where they can understand it. And as Rebecca and Carolina has said, they can help also with the Spanish speaking and stuff like that. But remember that if you have a friend that's out there, we do put it into different languages, so it makes it a little easier for them to understand. I know Carolina's been in foreign countries. I've been in foreign countries. It's sometimes hard to get along understanding all the dialects, and even though you may be able to speak the language, sometimes it's a little hard, but if you can actually read it, And if I can read it and understand what they're saying, then I know what they're meaning to trying to convey to me. So definitely open that up. But go ahead, Rebecca. What's your
Yeah,
question?
no, it's great to see that the SBA has so many resources to be able to meet people where they are, to get done what they need to get done. That's really delightful. So I see another question in the Q&A. One of our participants has employees that make over 100,000 and or over 100,000 plus benefits. And so how does that get filled out on the EZ form?
It's capped at everything that the CARES Act started out, as Carolina so elegantly put it. The 8-week program was what the CARES Act started out. Even after the Flex Act came out, we still kept it to the 8-week period, because I believe that what Congress was thinking, of course, that's hard to imagine. I'm a smart person, but I can't tell you everything about that. But they thought that the federal government shut down for 2 months, and that's what they're covering. As we know here in Missouri and Jackson County and Case and Clay and all that, we've been shut down, open, shut down. Well, Kansas City's back up, Missouri. It's been all over the place. But the 8-week period was what they based everything on, and that somebody who makes 100,000 was limited to 20,855. And then for partners or sole props, it should have been 15,385. I know there's change out there, guys. I'm not giving you exact pennies, but I'm just for general purposes, because that's people going, oh no, it's close. So that cap is what is there. And then if you go 24, you're still capped on the 100,000. We're not doing a windfall for an employee who gets over 100,000 a year. So you do have to count. You got to keep that cap on there. No matter how many weeks you go, you got to keep that cap on that employee. And if you have several of them, and I can think of a couple right off the top of my head, I've got a doctor's office that I opened up that runs an emergency medical care now center. And I've got 5 doctors working there, and between all their little places they go, I don't know, they make $200,000 a year. Well, the PPP is still only going to be for 100,000. That's all we're covering for 8 weeks. You may pay them more, but you can't count any more than the cap.
Gotcha. So this is a situation where if you had employee fluctuation after that, this kind of thing where new people coming on might be able to, for lack of a better term, soak up some of that amount for forgiveness and those kinds of things.
Right. And if you had an employee that's making, let's just say they're making 20,000, which I think is around $24,000 a year or something like that. If you got that employee and you start paying them overtime, that employee can go all the way up to the 100,000 cap. So even though, again, like Rebecca, we talked about, in the beginning, you filled out the application. I didn't list Rebecca and Carolina making $150,000. I listed I had employees at 100 because I maxed out and I had to put that on the thing and I capped them. But I didn't put names associated or Social Security associated with it.
Gotcha. So again, that's where that shuffling can be of help. And again, if you're looking at this form and being like, okay, that was great, but I don't understand what number to put on this form, again, reach out to either Carolina or Mike individually, or else, sorry, that's not what I meant to say. Do it.
Or else you'll be had, yes.
That was a little overly intense, not my purpose. I was going to say, or reach out to us at the SBDC.
And I would comment, Rebecca, I would start with you and the SBDC as my reach out. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, Carolina and I, we're having questions from the lenders. We're having questions from headquarters. We're having questions from borrowers. And you must remember, yes, I would go to the SBDC first because we're inundated because we cover 2 big programs, the PP and IDLE. And we have bankers, lenders, we have individuals, we have corporations. Everybody's wanting to contact us.
And what are we doing all day?
No,
well, 100%. That's what we're here for. I tease, but Mike is making a really good point on this particular topic. You guys are handling both sides of this, right? Both the lender question side and the borrower question side. And so for speed of assistance and those kind of things, sometimes please feel free to reach out to your local small business development center. Missouri SBDC, you can get us at sbdc.umkc.edu. But there's a sister center on the Johnson County side of the state line here in the area, as well as women's business centers and SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives. There's a ton of small business administration funded programs that exist to help you as a first line of defense for some of these questions. I think we're great, but we're one of many.
Well, and I agree with you. And I think that goes back to Rebecca, what we was talking about when I said, don't pay somebody to fill out this application.
Yeah, no, your taxes already pay for that. You're
and that's
already
one of my
paying
biggest
taxes.
Yes, that's one of my biggest things, because SBDC, SCORE, as you mentioned, Women's Business Council, they always put out there free training. And Carolina Vargas is going to be coming here to do your tax money's paying Carolina's salary and paying everybody else. So it's nothing free about
No
it.
additional cost is what the Missouri SBDC
cost
says.
what it should be, yeah. But,
yeah, you paid for this once. Use it. Gosh darn it.
Yes, yeah,
we're here for you.
and I'd also, and I know we're about to wind up and stuff, and you said you had a few more questions. I seen some pop in the chat. Real quick too, guys, don't forget, if you're out there and you got the PP or you didn't get it, or you got the idle, you didn't get it. Right now, I've been through this all the way back into 2001 and 2005, and then on into 2010 era, 2008, 2010. A great resource is going to be Rebecca and them, because times are changing and you can't sit there and do the same thing you did last August. You have to modify your business plan. And that modification, because if serious and everything, it should be like your Bible for your business. And you need to modify it and stuff. Rebecca and them are going to be the greatest source to be able to help you transition into this new environment. We don't know how long this is going to last or what's going to go on. I'm sure that the people in 1918 with the Spanish flu thought they'd never get out of it. We will get out of it. We'll come out the other side. But in that meantime, you might want to reach out to help you keep your business afloat and how you can restructure. Is that correct, Rebecca? I mean,
absolutely. We are here to be a first line of defense, of course, on these particular questions, but there's more to running a business than how to get this loan forgiven. And we're here for the whole kit and caboodle. And so appreciate that shout out. Want to close with one clarifying final question from Deborah. So on this, she was the one who asked the 100K employee question, and she's like, wait, because of the 24-week extension, we don't get more per employee, we just get more time to spend the original cap. Is that the
pretty much?
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, because it's hard to, when you put numbers in it, it's easy to get lost. But once I got from 8 weeks to 24 weeks, I didn't get to spend more money for certain things. I just got more time to do it.
Right. And in the cap, the 24, again, Rebecca, she can reach out and get a little more clarification on it, because each case is going to be a little different as to what they're spending money on. So yes, the difference is the Flex gave them the flexibility, Flex Act gave them flexibility to spread out, because what they found was, and what congressmen, again, call and write your Congress and senators, that's who gets the stuff done. But a lot of business called them and said, you gave us 8 weeks to spend this, but Jackson County has us closed down for a month. We can't even open. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to have people working when I have nothing to do. And they went, okay, well, we're going to do it. But I do want to reiterate, the day you got your money started your 8-week period, if you were before June 5th. If you're after June 5th, there is no 8 weeks, it's straight 24. But you still only got the money for an 8-week period. The day you got your money starts the 24-week if you're after June 5th. Before you get the option to go either way.
Okay.
Either one, though, if you do it in 12, or you, like Carolina said, you do it in 18 weeks, then you can file for your application for forgiveness once the funds are depleted, is the key word.
Okay. Okay, depletion is the key. So if you guys have one more moment, we have one last good question from the chat, and I know there's a ton, so I'm going to ask one last question of Mike and Carolina, but then they need to get on to what I imagine to be probably 3 or 4 more Zooms today. I want to remind you that tomorrow at noon It's going to be this same crew, and we're going to be talking about EIDL loans tomorrow. And so join us then. But I'm going to close with this last question from Kathy. It says, please confirm if we have 10 part-time employees that work only very part-time, will they be 5 full-time equivalents? This question relates to FTE employees on the forms. So they're trying to, like, what is an FTE according to y'all, so we can fill out the form right?
Yes, according to the Labor Department, we go to the U.S. Labor Department to make that determination of what FTE is, because we don't know. We're just SBA. But the 40 hours, that's going to be covered, Rebecca, in our long form, because that's where that really comes in, is on the Schedule A, because you have to figure out your FTEs, because that's going to be a multiplying factor of your loan amount.
Okay.
On the easy form, again, if I applied and I had 3 employees and they're all part-time, and I said, I need this, and I come over here and I'll get to the end, I got 3 employees, I'm signing and I'm moving on down the road. The only time that's going to come into question is when either you have a reduction in the amount of money paid to them or the number of staff members. That's when you have to go to the 3508, because then we're going to get into multiplying the full-time employees versus, because Carolina is well familiar with it. When we first started the program, do you count FTEs, full-time employees, or do you count part-time employees, because you had to be under 500 employees to get an SBA PPP loan? Well, through much back and forth and in Congress, it was determined by the attorneys and stuff that the 500 employees included everybody. So if I had, a couple of people that were college students and they was working, 12 hours a week, they had to count as part of my 500, because we had a lot of colleges trying to apply because the students who worked at the college put them way over the 500. They wasn't eligible. So it counted everybody in the beginning, and we're going to do the same thing in the end. But we will get into the FTEs. They need to tune in for the 3508.
Thursday, 3 p.m. Be there or be square.
Same bat time, same bat channel. Yes.
Exactly. Guys, I want to say a huge thanks to Carolina and you, Mike, for spending some time just talking about this stuff. Because sometimes in like presentation mode, you're like, I'm learning so much that my brain can't catch up with what I'm hoping to learn. And I'm deeply appreciative for you to just be available, answer questions for the group together. Excited to do the same thing tomorrow at noon as it relates to the EIDL program and questions that we might have about that. Long formers, we'll see you Thursday at 3. And without further ado, we'll say a huge thanks and do it again tomorrow at noon.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Rebecca, for hosting us.
Oh, absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Deeply grateful that you guys took the time. Looking forward to seeing everybody back here tomorrow at noon.
Be safe, guys.
Yeah, be cool.
Thank you.
Bye.